Imagine a soldier the size of an insect.
Hi, welcome to What the Flick. I'm Christy. This is Tim Grierson. That's Alonzo Duralde. That's William Bibbiani. It is an all-star cast of random people here today for Ant-Man, which Bibbs is going to describe because he's our resident comic book geek.
Okay.
Tell us about it.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Oh, jeez. Okay,
No
well,
pressure.
Paul Rudd deals with the pros and cons of shrinkage in Ant-Man. Let's take a look.
Scott, I've been watching you for a while. You're different. And I believe everyone deserves a shot at redemption. Do you?
Absolutely. My days of breaking into places and stealing stuff are over. What do you want me to do?
I want you to break into a place and steal some stuff.
Makes sense.
Are you ready to become the hero?
When you're small, you have superhuman strength. You like a bullet. So you need to know how to punch.
You want to show me how to punch? Show me how to punch.
That's how you punch.
You tried to hide your suit from me. Now, it's gonna blow up in your face and destroy everyone you care about.
Scott, get out of there!
Did you think you could stop the future? You're just a thief!
No. I'm Ant-Man. I know. It wasn't my idea.
There's so much more to it than that. There's so much subtext, torment about being smaller.
There is. There is.
This is a fun movie. Like in a world where Marvel movies are really heavy now, and they have multiple villains, and the world's going to come to an end in catastrophic ways. This is light and it's breezy and it's fun. I had a good time.
This is a superhero movie that feels like it escaped from the 90s. It's very self-contained. It's actually relatively small scale, but like it really doesn't like push a lot of boundaries. A lot of the Marvel movies have been getting bigger in terms of theme and scope. And here's one that we're really, I'd say like about half of it takes place in Michael Douglas's house. Like it's really like it's a very
house, though.
it's a lovely house, and there's a lot of detail.
And
in
when
it
you're
in the
this
scene.
big, it's enormous.
That's right, but it's very contained, and I think it's interesting. I'm curious how it's going to be received because even though it's fun, it's not like a life-changing experience, and I think it can't help but be seen as like a step down or a step back in a little bit.
I mean, I agree with the fun assessment. I definitely think it's fun. I think it's a little slow, to be honest, and I think that. You were talking about the 90s. The movie it most reminded me of was actually a little bit of The Rocketeer in terms of just like that kind of gee whiz kind of fun spirit. I think my main issue with it is I think it's lighter than some of the recent Marvel movies. I don't think it's as funny as, say, like the first Iron Man movie. I think it's more jokey.
Or Guardians.
I mean, but those are different kind of humor. This is like lighter, and those are like snappy, kind of biting, and a lot of the fun of the first Iron Man, at least, is like there's sort of self-deprecating humor about his bravado and who he truly is. Like this is just like, wow, I'm small. Look at the cool stuff I can do.
Yeah, for me, like, there's like a little bit of self-deprecating humor goes a long way in this movie because I feel like going into this, I mean, as everybody knows, Edgar Wright was originally the filmmaker behind this, and he stepped away. Peyton Reed took over, and the movie, I think, in some way, sort of acknowledges its own smallness in terms of the Marvel universe. It's very self-deprecating.
It's modest.
It's very modest. I think I actually use that in my review. It's a very modest Marvel movie.
But it's cool looking. Like some of the big chase and flight scenes are fun. Yeah.
I gotta say, I did not have enough fun at this.
No?
What is the amount of fun you're supposed to have?
More than this.
Okay, good to know.
No, I was looking forward to this because I liked Guardians, and I thought, okay, this is cool. We're going to go into sort of like a corner of the Marvel universe. This is not going to be, like you said, the stakes are not the Earth, and everything. And I like Paul Rudd, and even without Edgar Wright, I thought, okay, I could see where this would be fun. I don't think the jokes land very well. I feel like it's like, I mean, Michael Pena, bless his heart.
I totally
I'm
agree.
a big fan of his. And in this movie, it's like, he listened to Dave's Not Here Man about 1 million times because it's just too much and too shticky.
But may I interject really fast?
Yeah.
They also subvert those stereotypes by having him be like a wine aficionado, a modern art expert.
No,
he goes nuts for a Rothko that he
Sure,
sees.
no. I mean,
so in some ways he offends your
no. I'm not saying it's offensive. It's just
just
a
the
little
portrayal.
too.
It's very
yeah,
heightened.
you know, it's too wacky for me. So that didn't work. And then I thought I liked the big climactic battle and the way that they stage it. There were some very clever bits there, but for the most part, I thought a lot of the action stuff didn't land either as far as being really exciting. So I don't know. I just kind of sat there going. I could see what this movie was trying to be and could be, but wasn't being.
I totally agree with Alonzo, because for me, like, I think a lot of times with the first of a series of potential comic book movies, it's the table setting. Like, this is establishing the world, establishing the universe. In this one, very much like you're talking about being in the house a lot, in Michael Douglas's house. I feel like I was in the house forever, establishing him, establishing the Michael Douglas character, establishing the bad guys, establishing the love interest. You know, it felt like this is a type of movie that maybe sets up a better second movie, but I feel like it took such a long time to get to a very good third act action sequence. It was really well done, but I felt like, boy, it takes us a long time to get there.
It's a disjointed film, which I think, and I think a lot of people are going to want to look at it and say, well, Edgar Wright left, they rewrote it, maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know where it comes from, but like the first third is really conversational, jokey, doesn't even have any real superhero elements except for like a brief prologue. That could be an entirely different movie. And then it's all this middle chunk where it's the heist movie and it's setting things up. And there are parts that feel really shoved in there. There's a cameo I won't reveal, but it's really just, and now we do this for a couple of minutes. And that didn't quite work. The villain, played by Corey Stoll, who's a good actor, he does okay. But they keep referring to this plot point where, like, oh yeah, the Pym particles are affecting his brain. We didn't actually see him get exposed to those at any point in the film.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. But regardless, it all kind of just sticks together by sheer force of personality. The cast is really great. Michael Douglas is having fun and he's energized in a way we don't get to see very often. Paul Rudd is really good at this kind of lead. I like it. No, he's vetoing Paul Rudd.
No, I love Paul Rudd. I'm a big fan. This movie does to him what Jurassic World does to Chris Pratt.
I totally agree.
Why do you cast this guy who has this personality and this charisma and then strip it away? They make him such a bland leading man. I was like, I can't believe I'm watching this. Why are you doing this?
I don't think he's
He's a
necessarily.
storied past. He's a criminal.
Yeah.
Fine, but
He's in prison.
but
I'm going to yell that about everyone now. You have a storied past.
They play him very dully, I think, and it just and I oh God, I never watched Lost, but Evangeline Lilly is terrible in this. She has zero chemistry with Paul Rudd. She has no screen presence. I don't know. I have not seen her in the work that made her famous, but based on this alone, I'm like, who is this woman and why is she stinking up this movie?
There is some odd editing around her performance. There's this early scene where Michael Douglas and Paul Rudd are talking, and she interjects, and she's mad that Michael is going to make Paul Rudd Ant-Man, and I could be Ant-Person right now. Yeah. And it just cuts. There's a cutaway to her where it just cuts to her doing this. For a while, and I'm like, is that a joke? Like, I don't know. It's a weird thing. It feels like a lot of this movie is kind of mashed together.
Well, like you were saying before about seeing like a bunch of different movies. I mean, there's 4 credited writers on there. One of them is Adam McKay, who of course has worked with Will Ferrell a bunch. Yeah. I'm actually really curious who wrote what, because it does. There is a certain. I'm sure that McKay came in, and also Paul Rudd came to do the funny stuff, and it does feel like there's like a sense of. Throw some jokes in here, throw some jokes in there.
And not that Edgar Wright doesn't do the funny stuff. What do you got?
I interviewed some people behind it, so I can say, from what I understand, Adam McKay and Paul Rudd, they rewrote a lot of the opening to sort of establish all the characters, that really funny opening in the beginning. The cameo scene I was talking about, that was Adam McKay's idea. And then also the new thing after Edgar Wright bit was there's this climactic, very trippy bit that I don't want to spoil, but it's really trippy. Yeah. It's very Ditko 70s. That was also
which is one of those screenwriting 101 things where don't push that button in Act 1 becomes you have to push that button in Act 3.
So across the street.
Exactly. Yeah.
So William, do you know the Ant-Man comic?
Pretty well.
So in terms of, because the Michael Douglas character is
the original
Ant-Man.
So in terms of how to predict how
he also created Ultron in the comics.
That's right, and he was also a wife beater.
So in terms of that major change in terms of the movie. How do you think people are going to respond?
What do you mean?
The Scott Lang Ant-Man does exist in the comics.
Yeah.
It just came along later.
This is actually one of the more interesting things that Marvel hasn't done yet in the movies is the idea of legacy and history. We haven't seen a mantle pass to anybody. There were no heroes to speak of except for Captain America until very, very recently. So this sort of generational concept, which is very much a theme of the film, the idea of fathers and sons and daughters. Corey Stoll's character sees Michael Douglas as a failed father figure. Now he's becoming a better father figure to Paul Rudd, who in turn wants to be a better father figure to his daughter. Michael Douglas is failing to be a father figure. It's all. There's a cohesive theme. But I will say this, I think we're ripping on it a lot, but I don't think any of us are really slamming it. It's a fun film. It just doesn't feel like a part of, there was a long time when we had some good superhero movies, but it feels like we hadn't cracked the code of how to adapt superhero comics. And this feels like an okay thing that if this had come out in '95, we would all say it was fantastic, because we didn't have a lot better. And now we have way more cohesive, way more coherent, way better superhero films to compare it to, and it doesn't quite hold up. But I had a good time. As a matinee, there's some really fun stuff in this. There's some very imaginative bits. I think it's pretty good. It's just not great.
I want to mention really fast, I'm sorry. If you're thinking about bringing kids, I brought mine. He's 5.5. He comes with me to everything. He's seen a lot of stuff. There's a climactic scene. Again, I don't want to give things away. There's a little girl who is in peril.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that freaked him out. I mean,
Really?
he's seen everything. He has seen Anakin turn into Darth Vader. Spoiler, sorry. He's seen a lot of PG-13 stuff, and that's the one thing where I said afterward, what'd you think? And he's like, I didn't like it. It was scary. Yeah. So FYI, if you're bringing small kids, there's a couple things that might be a little bit scary.
I think that's fantastic praise, though, because we talk about how small scale this is. The world isn't threatened. And yet, based on the smaller scale threat that's in this film, there was an intensity that your child responded to.
That's more impactful than the Avengers.
Like in Age of Ultron, which I liked okay, but like, oh no, the thing is floating into the thing. It's so abstract. Here it's just, there's a family and they're getting threatened and we care about them enough that we don't want them to, and it means something.
Two last quick things. One, speaking of Jurassic World, another nothing role for Judy Greer.
Poor Judy
The
Greer.
mom.
Really
She's
deserves
just the mom
better.
again.
Really deserves better.
It's like she wrote that book for nothing.
I know. I need to read that. I have a copy. And then, second of all, one thing I noticed, and maybe it was just the audience that they had recruited for this screening. Tim and I saw it, and there were maybe 6 journalists there, and the rest was people who had been recruited. So, when certain characters from other areas of the franchise show up, when things are set up for later, like they went more apeshit for that than anything else. And I kind of feel like the next wave of Marvel movies is going to be so much about that, about the architecture of the franchise.
The MCU.
And that people are responding to that so much that that's what they're going to kind of coast on,
The jokey
I worry.
engines.
Sort of. They're like, you know what we're talking about, you get
and what's
this,
sad and what's
you're
ironic,
in on it,
What's sad and what's ironic is supposedly that's the reason why Edgar Wright left the project, was they wanted to shoehorn all those things in, and that's what the audiences are responding to, not what I can only imagine was in his version slightly better structured, fun superhero heist film. So they weren't looking at the film, they're looking at the whole package. They're seeing Ant-Man as a preview. It's like when everyone saw, what was the movie they played that was like Wilder Napalm or something? They played the Batman trailer in front of in 1989. Oh. And everyone was just like, it did really, really well. I was weird. Anyway.
Ant-Man, you are but a cog in a larger machine. Okay, so what are our numbers, gentlemen? Bibbs, what's your number?
7.5, definite recommendation, but not without qualifiers.
Okay, Tim.
I give it a 5.
Alonzo.
6.2, it's a letdown, but not a complete disaster.
7.3 from me, so our average is 6.5. It is at 76% on the tomato meter. And dropping, yes? It was higher?
Yeah. We'll see.
It's small. Bye.